Joining us now, Dr. Michelle Elliot, Director of the Kidscape Children's Charity. John Carr, Secretary of the Children's Charities Coalition on Internet Safety, is in Oxford. Michelle Elliot, what do we really know about women abusing children?
We don't know a lot about women abusing children because we haven't asked the right questions. I have over 800 cases of adults who were abused by women when they were small, and that's just one person. If we ask the right question, I think we'll find that it's far more widespread than we've hitherto thought. Is
it the wrong question to ask whether men goad women into abusing children?
That is the way people have portrayed it. Whenever a woman has been found to abuse children, people come out with the excuse for the woman, that the man made them do it. Now, in 75% of my cases, there was no man at all involved, and I find it absolutely amazing that we know that women can physically abuse children, emotionally abuse children, kill their children, but we draw the line and say they cannot sexually abuse. Well, they do.
We don't know much about this particular case, but clearly the prejudice would suggest that, you know, the man had groomed the women to supply the images and the rest.
Yes, which is very sad. In fact, I used to think that all abuse was perpetrated by men, and then I was speaking at an RAF base, and a young man came up to me, tears in his eyes at the end of my speech, and he said, "You didn't mention women. My mother abused me." And ever since then, I have been collating and talking about this issue, but you sometimes feel like nobody listens.
John Carr, obviously it raises enormous questions about the internet, and Sue Turton described it as a crime of our time. And the question, of course, is whether this would have occurred without the internet. I mean, whether these internet servers are now unwittingly facilitating a growth in child abuse in this form.
Well, we heard that the three people involved in this case met for the first time when they were brought up into the dock at the court today. So quite clearly, this crime could not have happened. These people couldn't have been involved in it in the way that they were if the internet hadn't existed. And it is one of the distinctive features of the internet that it does allow people to link up, find people with mutual interests, and then, and this is the crucial thing, they mutually reinforce each other's offending behavior. It somehow makes them feel that they can't be so bad or so unusual because, hey, there are all these other people now that they're linking up with who think and feel exactly the same way as they do.
Well, Michelle Elliot, are we then talking about people simply being turned on to child abuse who had no propensity for it, or are we triggering something which already exists in people that might have that propensity?
I think that we are triggering something. If you think about the history of child sexual abuse, you might have had one person in a village who was sexually abusing children. He or she wouldn't know about people all over the world who might be doing this. And a lot of people have fantasies they don't act on. When you find that they do find other people who feel the same way, it reinforces them. In fact, I think that the internet, as wonderful a tool as it is actually responsible for a growth in both pornography, child pornography, and in sexual abuse.
John Carr, you represent a lot of charities that are concerned about child safety in the internet. Are you really minded now to get people to look at the possibility of holding service providers, people who provide email links and the rest of it, being held responsible for content?
Well, it is certainly true that some of the social networking sites could and should do an awful lot more to police the content that's on their site. Some social networking sites are actively doing this, others aren't. Facebook is one of the ones that doesn't patrol its content as actively as I think it should, and I think these types of cases, I'm afraid, are going to lead to an ever greater clamour that they should be compelled to do so.
Can I ask you then, Michelle Elliot, the question now really is whether these people were themselves abused. I mean, is that a pattern?
It is a pattern, it is an indicator. In some cases you can't find the actual evidence of abuse, but in the vast majority of cases it may not necessarily be sexual abuse. And it certainly is something in their personalities that has been instilled in them in some way. I do not believe, as child abusers would have you believe, that they were born that way and therefore that's their sexuality. I think it is a deviant behavior which is learned through some sort of abuse.
We're not sure what this police study of the 20 is going to involve. We don't know whether it's sort of an academic study or whether it's something more intrusive in a sense. Do you think anything can be learnt from these poor children that have actually suffered this?
I think that a lot can be learned. As Daniel Glazer was saying earlier, we don't know how these children are going to react. We don't know if they're going to remember it. We don't know if we should bring it up to them. I don't think so. I think the parents need to deal with their children in the same way they always have. But I think that if they're going to do this, it shouldn't be intrusive, but it could be very, very, very good for future cases and for helping these children if they need it.
John Carr, then, will your step after this, do you think, be to formalise some request for an inquiry into the question of policing internet service providers?
Well, actually, the government are dealing with this right now. There is an agreement with, that's been entered into between all of the different internet service providers that are active in this field, particularly the social networking sites. And these people, if we remember, did meet on Facebook, which is a social networking site. And one of the things that the government is now discussing with these providers is precisely how they're going to carry out their obligations under it. So on this issue at least, I think the government is right up to speed on it, and I think this case, however, will give added impetus to us resolving this more quickly, I think.
John Carr in Oxford and Michelle Elliott, thank you both very much indeed.